So why did God give Muslims 114 chapters if half of them have been abrogated? What's the use of reciting them and memorizing them and repeating them every year during the month of Ramadan and repeating them in our prayers? Because they do make sense and and provide continuous sense of mercy, continuous sense of guidance. So with that, the verse of the sword was the question in place, has not been abrogated according to the majority of scholars within Islamic history. And even if it's the legal battle on whether it was or it wasn't, in practice, in reality, it was not practiced in that sense. You have the verses that talk about God does not forbid you to deal with everyone around you in fairness and just, and actually it ends in the la yuhibbul muqsitin, that God loves those who take an extra step. That not only just do with fairness and justice, but I take an extra step beyond that to accept, to not only tolerate, but accept and live and coexist peacefully with others. So long as they have not invaded and took over your lands and killed your people and so forth. So that's the end of the verse. Is that obviously if you're at war with somebody, if our country is legally at war with anyone, anyone that goes and conspires with that other side is considered what? Traitor. That's the modern law of the nation state. If you conspire with another nation that you're at war with, then you're a traitor. And that's where people are not allowed to be friends with the enemy state. And that's where the verse says, so long as they're not fighting you and your family and your lands, taking you out of your lands, but you're coexisting with them, then God wants you to be peacefully and compassionate. The verse uses the word compassion. That treat them with an extra step. Take the extra mile, as they say. I hope I answered some of that. I mean, in the Shia, even within Shia Islam, there's multiple opinions, but they do have an authority figure that speaks on behalf of the law. Although it depends if you're from Iran or from other countries, there are multiple, one or two, not as diverse as within the Sunni school of thought. So, just like I look for somebody who's professional in their field, I look for a scholar who's professional, who's studied well, who's not studied it from just newspapers and read at home what it means to be a Muslim or Islamic law, but actually engaged and went to school extensively and has been trained well. And then I would go and ask them, what do you think Islamic law says about X, Y, and Z? The same way, if I have a really technical, sensitive heart operation, I'm going to go to several doctors, and it's me that makes the decision. I feel better that this guy knows what they're talking about. Obviously when there's an Islamic state and so forth, there would be a council of, this used to be at the time of the companions, where they had a council of scholars. That the caliph, the ruler, would say something and would go to his council, and they would say, you're wrong. You can't do that. You don't have the authority to do that. So not a single person, even the governor in Islamic history, did not have the right to decide what is Islamic law and what is not. Yes.
Thank you. You mentioned that the first principle was mercy towards all, no compulsion in religion. You talked about that. Right now, in Iran, there's a Christian pastor, Pastor Youssef, who was just condemned to death for refusing to revert back to Islam. So I was just wondering how that fits in with the principle of mercy, and if it's just, as you said, a misapplication of that principle, would you publicly condemn that judgment tonight? Would you condemn the death sentence against Pastor Youssef, or is that just a way to expedite his personal connection with God?
Thank you. The verse in the Quran and the first principle was no compulsion on religion, the protection and promotion of faith. So anything that obstructs that freedom of faith is condemned. In Islamic history, there was an injunction against changing faith in some places in Islamic history, not all, because there were incidents during the time of the Prophet of several actually, that converted out of Islam into another faith and were not condemned to death. So this historically, just to give you a historical context, historically, when somebody changed their faith in the Roman Empire, it means they're going against the state. It means it's espionage. It means it's a traitor. It means you're going against the will of the people. In the Roman Empire, the Christian Roman Empire, when the Muslim Empire began, it went along with the same norms that the international relations system was based on. Whether that's fair or not, that's a historical decision for historians to decide. Today, we have a new system. Today, when you change your faith, does not mean that you're going against the United States or against Iran or against any of those countries. So you have to also look at it, whether it was right or wrong, that's another issue in the past and historically. But we have to understand the context behind it. So if you want me to condemn it, I will condemn it, yes. Today, tomorrow, every day. But that's not, it's more about understanding the context that comes behind it. The Iranian system, the Saudi system, both do not speak for Islam. And you can ask the majority of Muslims who are not from the Middle East this question, that do these two governments represent Islam or not? The majority of Muslims live in which country, by the way? Indonesia. You have more Muslims in India than the entire Middle East, and they're a minority, by the way, in India. But yet, their numbers are more than the Muslims in the entire Middle East. So yes, that interpretation in those regions. Plus, you have, the Iranian. I can wear my political science hat and tell you, the Iranian regime, the Saudi regime, the Assad regime, who kicked out a Christian pastor from the city of Hama just a few weeks ago, and is now basically hiding underground. Again, saying that they want to protect Christians, but yet they persecute Christians as a regime that has been killing its people. So, regimes in politics have always done this, have always manipulated faith to their own political advantage. So that even if they go and they bring a scholar to go up on TV and say, this is the way it is, or this is not the way it is, honestly, as their credibility is already gone with me personally as a scholar of Islamic faith. So if a scholar goes up and says that, I can argue with their analogy and with their interpretation and say, well, that's not the right way to look at it, and that's not the right interpretation, given the principle of mercy, the principle of freedom of faith, that is not the right approach to it. Even if we have to reinterpret the text that was narrated, 1,400 years ago. The text was, again, given in the context of political affiliation and less on religious affiliation. I hope I answered that. Next. Please feel free to come afterwards if you want me to answer it further. Yes, sir.
Okay, I have 3 quick questions, but first I want to thank the MSU for hosting this event, because I've been to the last few of them and I've learned a lot about Islam. But I want to preface my 3 quick questions with one thing, because every time I come, I personally have no sentimental attachment to any religion. I'm an atheist myself. But it seems the more I come and the more I learn, the more overwhelmingly arbitrary it seems. I'm trying to make it come to some kind, gel it together so it doesn't seem arbitrary. And this time, the last time, when it was brought up about how Muhammad received the revelation situationally, it almost makes it seem like some kind of celestial Dear Abby. But the 3 things I want to know, you bring up the concept of mercy. Mercy is like justice. It has some sort of emotional attachment to it, but exactly what do you mean by mercy? You keep saying it. I want a good definition of mercy. Secondly, you said the second goal is, I think it was the second goal, or the third, which is the freedom of the intellect, except with punishment in cases of slander. Well, what would define slander? Because in that case, it seems as though those people are interpreting that changing your mind, apostasy, changing your mind, is punishable, warranted by death. So in that case, how is it promoting the freedom of intelligence? And you're saying there's no central source, and it's based upon individual interpretation and council interpretation. How is that not arbitrary? And then the last one, because we have an accretion of knowledge, we've developed all sorts of wonderful, wonderful, wonderful things in the last 1,500 years, including the social sciences, psychology, et cetera, et cetera. So what happens when we find something in the text that's out of date? You brought up family values. Well, the UCLA Law School did an 11-year study and found that when you have 2 lesbian moms, you have very few cases of physical or verbal abuse with their kids. Their kids turn out just fine, as opposed to about, what, 63% of the general population. So A, can you define mercy? B, who decides what slander is? And C, what happens when we, citizens of the 21st century, use all that great stuff that we compiled over the years, such as social science, prove these laws out of date? How do we just step above them and rise above them to what we know today? Thank you.
Thank you. I hope I can answer some of your questions, or most of them, hopefully. Defining mercy is a difficult question, to be honest with you. Mercy has multiple applications. It's a concept, it's a principle. It has an emotional attachment, but also has a value attachment that's legalized in the legal structure. So it does have a technical meaning that has been interpreted within Islamic law and being in terms of the philosophy of Islamic law. When I meant with mercy is what the scholars legally they call maslaha, or the public benefit, the public interest. What determines the public interest? Mercy comes in many laws within Islamic law. For example, when I mentioned about the rules and regulations of slaughtering animals, when you have a, right now we have the most probably unmerciful type of slaughtering in the United States and many other countries, unfortunately. But one of it is, you don't slaughter a sheep in front of another sheep, because you know what? They see it, they feel it. You have to use a sharp knife, you have to do it quickly, you can't let it, it has to be on the exact place where the blood will go out very quickly, and so forth. So at least it's the minimum damage that's being caused. Yes, sir?
So, quick question. If we're trying to minimize pain and suffering for the other sheep, which is regardless if it's 5 seconds or 20 minutes, then why kill sheep at all?
God, well, it may or may not make sense, but in the Quran, God said that you are allowed to benefit. That God created animals for the benefit of humans to benefit from. So that's the principle that comes in, that everything in this life came to fulfill the needs of people as being the most precious creature of God. Human beings as being the most precious creature and the most dignified. God said, well, we have dignified the sons of Adam, the sons and daughters of Adam, and therefore everything else has been given to them to use in this life. Whether we breathe the air, we use the air, we use the plants, we eat the plants, and we eat the animals that God has given to us to enjoy. So that's where, God, that's the exception from the rule. The rule is you don't kill anyone, except when God said, well, God gave you the permission to eat those types of meats and to your needs. So you're not allowed to go and just shoot them wildly without a purpose behind it, without going through the technical legal permission. Basically, the original ruling is that you're not supposed to, except when God